Good evening, Professor Sahu. How are you?
Yes, good evening, Professor Arvinder.
How are you doing?
Good evening. Namaste.
नमस्ते राजाराम जी, कैसे हैं?
Namaste. Namaste. Namaste, Professor Sahu.
हेलो प्रोफेसर विवेक।
हाँ, नमस्कार सर, नमस्कार।
Namaskar, Professor Vivek ji.
नमस्कार।
Professor
राजीव
Rajiv
जी
ji, namaskar.
नमस्कार। नमस्कार
सर,
सर।
मैं-
So,
हम्म,
we begin with this because
जी
we have time.
7:30 एंड
7:30.
हाँ, लोग काफी ज्वाइन हो गए, आई थिंक सो, है ना?
या
34.
So, good evening, everyone. We have esteemed seniors and life members of Indian Sociological Society, and we have with us Professor S.L. Sharma sir, Professor Jagaram, Rajiv Gupta, Professor K.L. Sharma, also joining us, I believe. There are many senior scholars, senior sociologists, and also our dear life members of Indian Sociological Society. And we are organized particular meeting in memory of one of our own most important sociologist, Professor T.K. Oommen. And I'm really grateful Professor B. Kumar has agreed to moderate the session. And we would like to listen to all of our seniors and also people who have worked with him very closely. And we have all been, influenced by his writings and also the way he taught the sociologists, particularly the younger generations. And we have all been benefited by his personal attention and also continuously guiding and mentoring us. And today is the a very important day, International Women's Day. And if you remember, Professor T. Oommen used to promote women sociologists for leading the society and organizations. In 2006, 15 and 16, for the last 10 years, we have important presidents, women presidents, Professor Sujata, Professor Arindira, Professor Ava Chauhan, and also Professor Maitri. And this was all possible because of his support and encouraging women sociologists to lead the society. So in that case, Professor Oman is also very proactive in the context of promoting young women leaders to our Indian Sociological Society, important organization of sociological fraternity. So with this note, I welcome everyone, and we have lost so many seniors in this recent past, and Indian Sociological Society thought, let us celebrate, let us organize a meeting in memory of such illustrious sociologists, particularly Professor Andre Vete, Professor P.K.B. Nair. And today we are here to uh, listen to seniors and scholars who would like to contribute and they reflect on his contributions, particularly Professor T. Kerman. And with this note, I'm grateful, Professor Vivek Kumar, to moderate the session. Now, I would request Professor Vivek to uh, speak, Professor Arvinder Ansari, the Secretary of Indian Sociological Society, and speak few words so that you can start.
I will follow yesterday's structure. Let Vivek
That would
moderate.
be
I'll
good.
propose the
Thank
vote of thanks and just say my reflections in the end. Would that be all right? Vivek, is that fine that I'll speak in the last, let people speak? And I'll propose. Yeah.
yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
right.
I think Professor Dr. Sahu, President of Indian Sociological Society, and Secretary Professor Arvinder Ansari, and all the senior colleagues of Professor T.K. Oommen. I think the friends teacher, students and colleagues. I think it gives me immense pleasure, but with a heavy heart. And I welcome you on this occasion when we are gathered for paying our tribute to our teacher who has my only job is just to read a formal introduction of Professor T.K. Oommen. So the young generation, definitely they can read, but I think as a formal token of love, I will like to just read one of the interviews given by Professor Oommen in
Bharata Samiksha.
in the study. I'll just read a few lines from that and then hand over the mic to all the students and actually colleagues. So T.K. Oommen was born on 16th of October 1937 as the second male child of K.M. Koshi and Sarama Koshi in the family at Venomani, Travancore. And T.K. Oommen, as you all know, as a teacher, as an author, and a professor emeritus from the Center for the Study of Social System, was a pillar, one of the pillars of the Center for the Study of Social System, which became, of course, one of the leading centers of sociology in India. Professor Oommen was decorated with the Padma Bhushan in 2008, but before that, friends, he was awarded all the three highest awards in sociology. That was G.S. Gure Award, as well as BKR Rao Award, and he, according to him, he has written 22 books, author himself, and 10 edited volumes. He was the only Asian to be the president of the World Sociological Association, and of course, the Indian Sociological Society as well. Friends, as far as Center for the Study of Social System is concerned, I just want to, underline one fact that on the day he was retiring in 2002, he gave us, I think Professor Anand sir was there already. He gave us 1 lakh of rupees and said that, look, this I am donating to the center so that center can give an award to the student who scores the highest grades in MA. Now, on the lighter vein, he said that don't think that I'm a very rich person. I have, collected this money from all the 3 awards which I got. And then there was something less, which I have added on my own so that I can make it a round figure. And that became 1 lakh. And friends, for 20 years now, in the Center for the Study of Social System, we give an award to the students who scores the highest grade in MA. And that is now come to be known as T.K. Oommen Award. So that actually in his lifetime, Professor Oommen himself came and has given certificate and a medal to the students. The second thing which he contributed to the center was Global Studies Program, of which Professor Anand Kumar has been, the guiding principle also. But he was, in 25 years down the line, he was the person to envisage that how the world is going to shape. And therefore, a Global Studies Program, which actually adds the 5 continents of the world, and now 40 to 45 countries, students, they come every year. in the Center for the Study of Social System actually are there. The last point is that Professor Oommen treated, sociology as a profession. And he said that we are a profession because we profess ourselves. There is only a peer review. Nobody tries to, evaluate us. Therefore, friends, I think there is a lot of contributions which I think everybody will make. But my starting point was only to apprise the younger generation to understand that this interview is on ResearchGate. Anybody can read that also. So with these few words, I think I will begin with Professor Tara, because this is a International Women's Day. So I will like first to invite Professor Tara, because I know when she was editing the volume of Indian sociology, Professor Oommen wrote, the foreword also. So is Professor Tara there?
Okay, I am here.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, I think I will invite you to pay your respect to Professor Oommen first.
Okay. Thank you so much, President of the Indian Sociological Society, moderator, and my colleagues and friends. Of course, it is a very sad occasion because we lost many sociologists in the last 1 month, and T.K. Oommen was one among them. And Professor T.K. Oommen is more than a professor, more than an academician, and to me, he is really a guru for me. Though I was not a direct student of Dr. Oommen, I had the occasion to interact with him from 1976 onwards. Many times, because I was working in Madurai Kamaraj University, but he visited the university as early as 1976 when he was just finished the social movement, that is the Buddha movement, and also doctors and nurses, that is sociology of professions and occupation. Coincidentally or fortunately, we are one among the sociology or universities who introduced sociology of social movements and sociology of professions and occupation. And we thought that T.K. Oommen is the right person to give an introduction, give a speech on social movements. So he has given a very in-depth analysis of social movements, taking sociology, taking Buddha movement as, because it was his PhD thesis. So it was really impressive during that time. So he is not only my what should I say, that my colleague, but I deeply respect. Again, I am telling you that I deeply respect him and respected him as my guru. Though I never had the opportunity to be his student, many of my papers, you know very well that many of my papers were carefully reviewed and corrected by him. I am in the south and he is in Delhi, but I sent to him and then he used to correct not only sociology, but sometimes even English he used to correct. Most of the time he used to correct English before they were published in well-known journals. I'm not telling about his CV or the curriculum vitae or biography, but I will say some of the incidents uh, which I had with Dr. T.K. Oommen. Of course, Dr. T.K. Oommen, as the first speaker said, he is a recipient of many awards and Padma Bhushan too, and he is a sociologist. Of course, he is a sociologist, but he is a multifaceted person. I have the experience. He's an academician. Primarily, he's an academician. He's also an administrator and a writer and speaker and an organizer by himself. Everybody knows that he organized an international sociological conference at Delhi. It was really amazing, and it was a really good, and it was a turning point to the sociologists of India like me. And also for him, it was one of the turning point. And after that, he became the president of the International Sociological Association. At that time, I was the president of the Sociology of Religious Group of International Sociological Association. Academically, I want to say that I have gone through many of his work, and Dr. Oommen was one of the finest theorists in India, which India has produced. And all his work, in all his contributions, and he has got a lot of contribution. I'm not giving any contribution, as somebody said that 22 publication, 22 books are there, and immense number of papers. So we can say that his scholarly contribution span a wide range of themes, including social movements, that is the charismatic, and then social citizenship, national identity, pluralism, sociology of development, etc., etc. And all this work is deeply rooted in theoretical insights. That is the interesting part of it. That what I think later is that he is maybe, I'm not telling the only, but one among the person, sociologist in India, who had a theoretical base. Not only the field work and other things, the theoretical base is there. His intellectual contribution are so vast that it would be impossible to fully discuss them even in one day or 1 week or 1 month, etc. One of the most remarkable qualities of Dr. Oommen was his extraordinary ability to articulate ideas with clarity and depth. I was with him in many international conferences, and his clarification is not only in speech, even in writing the same thing. Even a postgraduate student can understand what he says.
I will like you that to shorten it, because there is list is long, so I will not be able to.
I will, yeah. Last, I want to tell you one more thing. His passing leaves a profound vacuum in Indian sociology. Great scholars never leave us. They continue to live through their writings, ideas, and the generation of students and scholars they inspire. There is a saying that no student of sociology can bypass Karl Marx. In the same way, I firmly believe that students of sociology at some point in their intellectual journey will inevitably encounter and engage with works of Dr. T.K. Oommen. I complete my speech by praying that his soul rest in eternal peace. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I think that was the befitting, start for the today's program. I now invite Professor S.L. Sharma for making his points.
Thank you, Professor Vivek Kumar. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Of course.
I would like to take this opportunity to share some of my reminiscences about Professor Oommen in several capacities, as a professional colleague, as a personal friend, as somebody with whom I have shared various meetings and dioceses in terms of seminars and conferences. Well, first of all, as a sociologist, I am particularly impressed with his contribution in terms of looking at sociology or looking at any society from two standpoints, from the above and from the below. And he always took a position, that of a sociologist who would like to look at society from below rather than from the top. Because in Indian sociology, most of the work that has been produced has been viewed from the top, and therefore he is distinguished in terms of his contribution by the very fact that he was the leading, I would say, intellectual who looked at Indian society as well as any other society from below. That's one. Another, as a professional colleague, I once had a little chat with him. He was nice enough to always send whatever publications he had. And when I told him that I'm really, I deeply appreciate this is gesture, he said, Professor Sharma, where are the readers? Only the writers are there, and only the writer reads his whatever he writes, there are no readers except the compositor. So that was the kind of relationship that we had. I think he was largely right that in modern times, most of us are interested more in writing or in just ignoring things than reading the works of others. Well, that's just in the right vein. I also recall an opportunity to share a dice with him in Amritsar. There was a conference in Amritsar and a national conference, and he was there to make keynote address, and I was to chair over the session. And he told me that was the time when by the time he had he had become a very moderate person to take some drink. So I checked with him, why is it that you are not taking it? He said, I'm under medical advice not to do so. And I will strictly adhere and follow the instructions. So that was the kind of person that he was. One more thing about him and that's the last thing that I would like to say. As a personal friend, he was always willing to help and help with a smile. I always, whenever I think of him, his smiling face always comes to my, view. And such a wonderful person, a reliable colleague. I also had very close collaboration with him in terms of, doing that number of the sociological bulletin on nation and national identity in South Asia. And then when the society thought of bringing it out as a volume, as a book, I offered it to him that he should be the lead author or lead editor, and my name should come second. He said, no, nothing doing. It's all your work. You will be the first. So, that was the kind of person, that real professional, genuine professional, who would always admire, appreciate the work rather than other things. He was never after making a name, but the contribution that he has made to Indian sociology and to global sociology remains outstanding. I take this opportunity to pay my heartfelt tributes to my late close friend, Professor T.K. Oommen. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. I know that Professor Damle, when wrote an ode to him, he called him as a Charawak of Indian sociology. I still remember. So I invite Professor Anand Kumar to make his point. Anand sir, are you there? I think, we are very short of time. I think, if Anand sir.
I don't think right now he's logged in. I
think Professor Rajaram will be able to.
Professor I'm there. No, Raja, don't.
No, I can hear his voice.
Anand sir is here only.
He's here.
Please, sir. Please,
I'm so thankful to all my colleagues who have joined here to remember one of the giants of sociology world. I had the opportunity of being his student just before Raja, and I had the privilege of being his colleague for 25 years. He shaped my career in many ways. It is not the best time to remember all the obligations which Professor Oommen created for students like us. I was not a very down-to-earth student in my days, a bit active, a bit dismissive, a bit arrogant also. But he made us learn modesty. He made us go and find articles in various libraries of the city. He made us learn that we know something about India, but we don't know much about India. We have to read classics. We have to learn from others' work. I also share the secret that my public persona was shaped by him. He was the one who introduced me to All India Radio. There was an invitation for a discussion on student unrest. He was invited. He told the director of All India Radio that don't only invite me, don't invite my student also, who is an expelled student from Banaras Hindu University. He was the one who gave me opportunity to join the Global Studies program. But he was also a hard task master. Those who have been his students remember that he was a joyful person, but in the class he will never smile. It was always a very serious affair. And to get good grades from him was also very difficult. I got good grades from many teachers here and abroad, but from Professor Oommen I got B+, and I think it was better than A from many other teachers. Friends, Professor Oommen was an institution builder also. I saw the activist in him on many occasions. He'll take lead, but he shied away from publicity. But the publicity was after him. He was the only Indian to become world president of Indian International Social Association. He was the only Indian sociologist who was taken into any public committee, like Sachar committee. He was the only Indian sociologist who became Padma Vibhushan. Many, many achievements. He created such a high mark. Actually, I must confess that I was puzzled by his creativity. After a few years, as his colleague, I had the courage to ask him one day, "Sir, can you control your pen and let there be one book per second year? Because you write the books and we have to read it. If we don't read it, our hollowness comes out. And if we read it, we get more confused." He smiled with an accomplished scholar's face. He was also a man who warned us about our ways and means. He made us walk on two legs. One leg was learning, the other leg was activism. Friends, I join many of you, and I see many of my very dear friends who had the privilege of learning and working with Professor Oommen. I also had the privilege of working under his shadow as president of the Indian Sociological Society. And he was the one who brought Hamid Ansari when President Pratibha Patil was dilly-dallying, not giving time to Indian Sociological Society inauguration. He made a personal issue with Professor Hamid Ansari, and Hamid Ansari came and graced our conference. So there are many, many stories, but as I suggested to the moderator myself, let there be a quota of 3 to 4 minutes so that family members and his other colleagues get their due share. I remember him with great gratitude, and I miss him, and I'll miss him for a long time to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. I know that actually 1 hour is not at all a justice, but I think that's what we have done today. Professor Rajaram, another student.
Yes. I thank the Indian Sociological Society, the president, Professor Sahu, the secretary, Professor Ansari, Arvinda Ansari, and Professor Vivek, the chair for this session, for giving me this opportunity so early in this. As many of the things which I wanted to say has been partly reflected, so I'll not dwell on them. And he shaped my understanding of sociology as a teacher, and later as my supervisor at MPhil and PhD. And I owe a lot to him about what all I understood of sociology. Or the various things one can talk about Professor Oommen. I notice Mrs. Oommen there in this tribute. I see his son there. I also hope and their contributions are equally noticed. But what I would like to do is I'll confine to 4 aspects, which I think makes it easier for me to keep to the time. First is, as a sociologist, he used to critique the dominant perspectives, keep what he called the established, question the establishment. He has written about it, starting from 1983 to 2001, and you can see various articles in the bulletin and elsewhere. As Professor Sharma said, the perspective from below was something which he needs to focus on, and alternatives, creating alternatives to the dominant explanation. It cannot be just one. You have to keep critiquing. And that he brought to all his other areas of work. And he created space for them. So his students were also people who had different views and different kinds of things working on. The second point which I would like to do, and this is something which he practiced, which he preached. He was a critique of academic parochialism, people working only on their own cultures or the culture from which they came. He says the people tend to do that. As a sociologist, we must move out. And he is one who worked on many different locales and cultures in India. There's something which very few sociologists in India have done. Not only was he worked on his PhD on Rajasthan, his book on doctors and nurses Delhi, he worked on Kerala, on agrarian movements. He has worked on Gujarat, on Godhra, post-reconciliation. And there are other places. And there are others who have mentioned this. This is something which I hope youngsters would realize, that you should get out of the academic parochialism, which he was a critique of, and to work on this. But the third thing is, which I think I would like to dwell slightly more. He was an institutional builder, something which Professor Anand referred to. There are instances from JNU I can give you, because I was one of the earliest batches of the students and I saw what he did to JNU. But this is not an audience for JNU. That will be separate to JNU people. I'll talk to you something from the Indian Sociological Society. Well, I worked with him. I saw him interact with him during the World Congress. Subsequent to the World Congress, he had mentioned it, and he has written about it in that seminar article of 2000. Some of you may have read it, and those of you who would like to refresh it, I request you to reread it in November 2000 about Indian Sociological Society, the profession, etc. You know what he did? There was a money which he saved from the World Congress, about 10 lakhs, which was invested, and by 1998, it grew into 30 lakhs. He has written about that. And that was used to buy a building, the present place which we have now. It is anchored. At that time, when he was conducting, he was criticized, but yet he was impeccable. He did this. And today, thanks to his efforts and the money he collected, we have a building of our own. And that is something that he has talked of the Indian Sociological Society. Read that article. The last point which I would like to do, and that is as a student, what kind of things which he did. During my student days, I was quite active, and Professor Oommen had the courage to take a student like me as a student when I was critical of the regime of that time. He did not hint. He was not scared. I don't know how many students would do, how many faculty members would do it today with their critiques of their respective state governments or central government or whatever. And secondly, and lastly, he did not try to tell students work on this topic. He asked them to work and create a topic of their own. He was not trying to establish an Oommen kind of a school or a pattern, which some people have done in certain social sciences. I pray that he rests in peace. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. I gave you a little bit more because you are the student, direct student, MPhil and PhD. So I think you have more right to speak on. So with these words, I actually, I want to tell the younger generation that there are two volumes of his biography. One is Trials, Tribunals, and Triumph, Life and Times of a Sociologist. And the second part is From Bharat to India as an academic's journey. I think these two volumes, you can definitely go through it. With these words, I invite Professor Nagla. You know that there are 4 generations of the students of Professor Oommen are here. And actually, we will like to accommodate everyone. But I think, Professor Nagla, you can be a little bit, actually. Please, carry on.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Veer. Friends, today as we gather to pay tribute to Professor T.K. Oommen, I speak not only with a sense of academic respect, but with a deep personal gratitude. When he joined the Center for the Study of Social System, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, he became one of the central intellectual pillars. For a generation of students at JNU, he was not simply a professor, he was an intellectual presence. I had privilege of being Professor Oommen's student during my MPhil PhD at JNU. His course on methodology in sociology became foundational to my doctoral fieldwork. His insistence on conceptual clarity, empirical grounding, and analytical restraint shaped by my academic orientation in lasting ways. Even today, whenever I guide my own research scholar, I hear echoes of his voice asking, "What exactly do you mean by by this concept?" But beyond the classroom, there was another side of Professor Oommen, human, warm, and occasionally delightful, vulnerable. I recall one incident during a holy celebration at JNU. We were offering bhang ki thandai to teachers and students. I warned him not to take it, explaining that its intoxication was quite different. He smiled and replied, "No problem. We also take alcohol." Despite my hesitation, he took the drink. Soon after, he began feeling as though he was flying and became visible uncomfortable. In that state, he complained affectionately that we were not taking care of him while attending to the others. We reassured him that everyone would be fine in the next day. The incident revealed a simplicity and trust that endeared him to us even more. He was also an astute administrator. I remember a situation when some students demanded a common hostel for boys and girls, particularly the girls. As Dean Student of Welfare, Professor Oommen addressed the issue philosophically and pragmatically. He said that university had no objection provided students obtained permission from their parents. The matter quietly dissolved, and that was his brilliance, firm yet thoughtful, and principled yet practical. So our association continued long after students' year. Whenever I visited JNU, I had a point to meet him, and he gradually accepted our invitation to lecture in our own department at the University Rohtak. Um, I also cherish his presence along with Professor P.N. Mukherjee at the All India Conference in Trivandrum in 2019. When I was honored with a Lifetime Achievement Award, his participation meant more to me than I express it. Professor Oommen's scholarship range across social movements, sociology of profession, citizenship, ethnicity, nationalism, and pluralism. As president of International Sociological Association and later Indian Sociological Society, he connected Indian sociology to global academic networks. His recognition with Padma Bhushan in 2008 acknowledged not only his scholarship but his service to the intellectual life in India. Yet, if may say, his greatest legacy lies not merely in titles, awards, and positions. It lies in the intellectual ethos he embodied, critically without cynicism, rooted without parochialism, universal without abstraction. He
Many
taught
people
us
said, "Can you stop,
the
sir?
sociology is not just an academic discipline, it is a moral and analytical engagement with the complexities of society. To me, he was not merely a renowned scholar, he was a generous mentor, a guide force, and a source of enduring inspirations. Though Professor
Sir,
Oommen
please,
is no
sir,
longer
sir, please.
physically among
Professor
us,
Nagla, Professor Nagla, time,
Please.
Vivek Saab is.
Please, there is no time, sir. Actually, I think, I've given you a little bit more time. Please, sir.
his idea, and just I'm thinking. So may his noble soul rest in peace, and thank you very much, Professor Sau, Arvind Ansari, and Vivek. They have given me opportunity. Thank you very much.
Sir, I think, now I will request everyone, please, actually, we don't have time, and there are many people. I have not heard my generation, or I have not heard actually the younger generation also, but I just wanted, I think Professor Arvind ji is there. Professor Arvind Gupta was there, I think, Arvind, No, I think Professor Ajailu is here.
Professor Rajiv Gupta.
Yes.
Rajiv Gupta. Sorry, Professor Rajiv Gupta. Sorry, Professor Rajiv Gupta. I think,
I
I'm
would
sorry.
also like to take 2-3 minutes.
Yes, I will definitely give you. I have already, but I think Rajiv Gupta, sir, please.
Professor Vivek, you can extend the time, so we don't have any problem. You can extend the time.
Please, actually. Rajiv Gupta ji.
Yes. Thank you very much.
We can extend the time up to 1.5 hours, no issue.
Thank you, Professor Sahu, Professor Arvind Ansari, and Professor Vivek Kumar sir. I was never a student of Professor T.K. Oommen, but he was a regular visitor of University of Rajasthan. And probably some of us also know that Professor T.K. Oommen started his research career in the beginning from University of Rajasthan. And he was very close to all of us. I'm reminded with one fact that when in 1978, 79, 80s, a large-scale teachers movement was going on in University of Rajasthan, and I was actively participating. Professor T.K. Oommen and Professor Andre Betei both gave us not only the moral support, but they visited the University of Rajasthan and talked to the university administration, which was headed by Professor TK and Unitan, and discussed a lot regarding the future of the teachers movement and our academic career. So he was one of the activists also. Then, secondly, I got an opportunity to discuss several things regarding my PhD thesis with Professor T.K. Oommen, and T.K. Oommen sir encouraged me to become the part of ad hoc research group on sociology of critical intellectual, which was existing in World Congress of Sociology. I became the member, but unfortunately, that ad hoc group could not continue for a longer period. I have gone through some of his important works like Knowledge and Society, Citizenship, Nationality and Ethnicity, and one of the interesting article which was published in Independent India, the first 50 years, which was on Indian society, tradition and autonomy. He was a very thought-provoking academician, a well-established theoretician, and more, in fact, affectionate to those who were active not only in the field of academic sociology, but in the field of public sociology. I pay my respect to Professor T.K. Oommen. T.K. Oommen, sir, salute to your memories.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. I think you kept the time. And I think now I invite Professor Ajailu to make her point.
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity. I would say that I must, like many of you, Professor Oommen taught me and my batch from 95 to 97 and learned about, the basics of theories, particularly of Emile Durkheim, Max Weber, and Karl Marx from him. And I also wish to mention that Professor Oommen's empathy and passion for sociology in India's periphery, like, for example, Northeast India, left a lasting impression. I interviewed him a few years ago for my work on sociology of Northeast, which is a part of this edited volume on 100 years of sociology, edited by me, Professor Abha and Professor Palta Singh, and also a part of Professor B.K. Nakla's book on sociology of regions. Secondly, I recall that when I invited him on behalf of Sociological Society of Northeast India to deliver the very first special lecture online during COVID time. He was reluctant because he said that he is with a walking stick and may not be able to speak well. He was a little reluctant, but I said, sir, to start Northeast sociology, the very first lecture, I want none other than you. And he graciously agreed. And I was very skeptical as to how many people would turn up. But there were more than 1,000 people because some of the universities, departments, They have online, in their seminar hall, they have the smart screens in their seminar hall. So when people said there are 300 students, there are 200 students, when we totally counted, it was more than 1,000. And I informed Professor T.K. Oommen, sir, and he was just thrilled. I recall that, the energy, despite needing a walking stick, he was so energetic. He got up from his seat and walked around. We saw him in the camera. And my last meeting physically was actually in 2022 at our All India Sociological Conference in USTM, Meghalaya. And I'll cherish his visits to University of Hyderabad many, many times. And I recall that since his son, Johnny, and ma'am is also here, I wish to mention that when I call him for dinner with my senior colleague, Professor Bhatt, and his wife, and asked Oommen sir what he would like to eat, he said bamboo shoot and mutton, to my big surprise. So I must say that I fondly remember him as much as many of you, and his legacy lives with us through his writings and through his lasting teaching impact that he had on all his students. And as Professor Anand sir said, he's a giant in sociology, and we will deeply miss him. Thank you very much.
Professor Vivek Kumar, unmute, please.
Professor P.C. Jain, I think I would like to invite Professor Tanveer Fazal. Tanveer Fazal has really, you can say that formally he was the last student to whom I think he supervised. I think he'll be able to tell you better. Professor Tanveer? You can unmute yourself.
Thank you, Professor Vivek, and thank you, ISS, for organizing this extremely important and very considerate of you to, have this kind of a memorial meeting for Professor Oommen. Yes, as Professor Vivek said, that I was probably the last batch of his student. I did my MPhil and PhD with him. And probably I would have been an incomplete scholar if I had not gone to Professor Oommen. When we were completing our MA and looking for our research guides, that was a time when Professor Oommen's work on nationality, ethnicity, and citizenship came out, reconciling competing identities. I read that book during my MA for a review. And then I felt that this is the work and this is the scholar which probably would probably be the person where I should be looking towards for my research. With my long association with Professor Oommen, I was part of the Gujarat Harmony project as well. Together we came up with the idea of reconciliation, where Professor Oommen, particularly when I was so much emphatic on why justice will not be denied, that there should be punitive justice, etc. And Professor Oommen, with his very considerate and understanding of the global situation as well, we brought examples from Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Africa, etc., to argue that why reconciliation is far more important, and thus justice is prolonged and justice is not stopped, but reconciliation is essential for communities to live together. And then we worked on in the Sachar committee together. Besides, he was extremely, as you all know, who have been his student, that he was very extremely particular when he would be your guide or supervisor, reading each and every line, correcting everything, and the kind of interest he would take in the work itself. What I've learned from Professor Oommen is, and what is extremely difficult I find it very difficult to emulate, though I would always try to, is the commitment to the work with deep honesty and integrity, the professional integrity which Professor Oommen commanded, was something which is to be not only admired, but it would be, something which all of us should try to follow. I would tell you, for instance, that never ever, though Professor Oommen was a giant, as everyone said, in sociology, and never ever would when one was looking for a position, etc., never ever would one, despite being very close as a student, ever approach Professor Oommen saying, "Sir, could you make a call here or there?" Because that is a kind of a distance, also a professional distance, which he would maintain between the student and the teacher. Professor Oommen's work, I will just take 40 seconds more to say that as I read, I find him far more radical than any one of his other contemporaries. If you look at his work on beginning from charisma, stability, and change, to when he goes on to work on Kerala, that is from mobilization to institutionalization, his ideas are not only he debunks the existing entrenched ideas regarding charisma or regarding, for example, in the work on Kerala, he debunks the middle peasantry thesis, arguing that how the poorest of the poor can also be the vanguard of radical change. Similarly, when I look towards his work on nationality, ethnicity, and citizenship, it crosses, it is extremely daring work to argue about the foundation of nation states themselves, and to suggest that how they could be untenable in a empirical situation. I would take this opportunity to pay my homage, I don't have words. I would say that Professor Oommen, even if he is no more with us, his work will be the guiding thing which all of us would follow, and ideally should follow. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Everyone is talking about very serious arguments about Professor Oommen. One of the very important thing was of his wit. I think his wits will always be remembered, the way he used to be very witty. One incident I remember, a student came late to the center, and he was, I think, missing for some days. And Professor, you don't want, attendance, go to daughter's university. Father was strict. So that was actually Indira Gandhi Open University and Jawaharlal University. That was the comparison he was trying to make. So with these words, I invite, Dr. Sudeshna. Is there?
Yes, sir. I'm there, sir.
Yeah, please, Doctor. Yeah.
Sir, I was also blessed to have him as my teacher, and I'm really thankful that I'm given that opportunity to talk. And I remember that when you were talking about you mentioned about the wit, so that just instantly came. So I remember that is my first class in the JNU, and I was very, like, you can say, shaky, scared. And that first class was by the Professor Oommen, and as Ajay was telling, it was on the sociological theories. So first statements are made that has got a strong imprint on my mind. On his impeccable way, he said that it is very difficult to score A, as Anand sir was telling, and it is equally difficult to score an F in Center for Social System. So that, instantly, like, the heaviness, we attended the Professor Oommen's class, and that was there, that we are sitting with the sir's class, so that eased that tension. So I must say that strong punch of wits was very much there in all his classes, along with the serious theories. So I am really, blessed, and now I think he has got enough that we should. It is so difficult to finish what he has written in his time. In his lifetime, for us to finish that. So thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like if Johnny Oommen can actually would like to say something about this. Johnny, are you there? Johnny Oommen, sir's son, Professor Oommen's son. Johnny, would you like to say something? This.
Yes, I thank you, sir, for including me in this meeting. I've been listening patiently to everyone, and I think really, I'm a bit overwhelmed because there are so many instances that people have recounted. I used to think that I know almost all of them, and that I knew what Daddy was up to mostly. But I think some of the things that have been mentioned are an eye opener even for me. And I can only say, as a son, I feel truly blessed to have been a little part of his amazing journey. But I think after having listened to so many people, and many of them, who I, as maybe a teenager or slightly younger, used to call, lovingly as uncle, whether it is Professor Rajaram, Professor Nagla, so many others. I might be, a little overwhelmed right now to mention everyone by name. It just brings back so many memories. And I only want to say that I'm so thankful, and I speak on behalf of the entire family, that the ISS is holding this memorial, and so many people have come forward to speak, about Daddy. And so thank you so much for your time, and for making this feel truly special. And
Thank you, Johnny.
I really get a better idea today. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Johnny, for joining. And I think it makes us also happy that actually, what we are doing is not going unnoticed by Madam and you. Actually, you are there. So nice of you to join. I also want to just read, a message by Professor Maitri Chaudhary. She's not able to join, but she asked me to read actually this line, that and my deepest condolences, but my apologies also that I'm not able to join. With these few words, I think I will now invite Professor Arvinder Ansari to say a few words, or I think if anyone else who wants to come in here, because I know everyone wants to contribute. Professor Arvinder.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Professor Vivek. Thank you very much. Friends, we are here today to celebrate the work, the personality, the kind of institution Professor T.K. Oommen was. And we all know that with passing of Professor T.K. Oommen, we have lost not only a scholar of a global repute, but also one of the most thoughtful voices of Indian sociology. Someone who consistently reminded us of importance of pluralism, academic freedom, and democratic values in our intellectual life. Friends, I had an opportunity to interact with him, and I was always, as Sudeshna has told, the towering personality, and it would create an awe in our mind कि Professor Oommen से बात करना है, उनकी क्लास में जाना है, and even also, to when I would know there would be this murmur in the corridors. We don't know whether he'll take us for his supervision or not, because he had so many students lined up. So, my interaction at JNU as student was, very hesitant with him, but he was always a very warm and would give you a courage. But I had a very, very close association with him when when I went to Jamia, and he was on many committees in Jamia. He was a close friend of Professor Mushir Hassan, and there was no department, whether political science, sociology, centers, where you would not find Professor T.K. Oommen. He was almost present in many of the committees. And I was also fortunate that he became a visiting professor after his retirement. And one interesting personal anecdote, I would like to share. When I was contesting for MC, so I wanted him and Professor Anand Kumar to kind of, sign my nomination form. So I called up him because he was staying in Gurgaon. I said, sir, I want you to sign my this thing. So yes, tell me, I'll come. I mean, I was shocked. He said, like, I'll come. It's 2016. He said, I'll come and sign. And believe me, friends, he came to Jamia to sign my form. Such magnanimity, such kind of affection is something which is very touching and something one has to learn from him. I'm sorry, there is some problem with my connectivity. I have not been able to put on my camera. But, this was an opportunity to, learn from him, the first-hand experiences. And also, when I saw him in Jamia, when he was interacting with our students, young scholars, and how he was, interacting with he would pass on his, comments very wittingly on their term papers and in conversations in class. His conversations were not only academic, they were invitations to think more deeply, more critically, and with greater and moral responsibility. And Indian Sociological Society owes him a gratitude and remains deeply indebted to him for his visionary leadership during a crucial phase of the society's evolution. His commitment to institutionalizing and strengthening ISS helped stabilize this organization at a difficult time, and the present office of society stands as a lasting testament to this foresight, as Rajaram has also reiterated. Beyond his scholarship, what many of us will remember is his role as an accessible mentor and teacher, someone who constantly encouraged students to articulate their ideas with clarity and confidence. His international leadership, particularly as a president of International Sociological Association, his role in World Congress of Sociology held in New Delhi reflected his belief that sociology must transcend national boundaries while remaining attentive to the complexities of plural societies. His work on ethnicity, pluralism, secularism is something which has deeply, influenced me and has helped me to path my specialization in minority studies. I, on behalf of Indian Sociological Society, extend our deepest condolences to his wife, his sons, and their families, his students, colleagues, and the wider academic community. I would also sincerely like to thank all the colleagues and friends who joined this meeting today and shared their reflections. Your words have reminded us that Professor Oommen's legacy lives not only in his writings, but also in the many minds and hearts he shaped. His intellectual presence will continue to guide and inspire generations of sociologists committed to rigorous scholarship and more just and plural society. I take this opportunity to thank Professor Vivek Kumar for moderating this session so wonderfully and beautifully. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. I think we know that Oommen has left us physically, but his intellectual legacy survives with us, with his writings, his speeches, as well as his words, which are always there resonating in our ears. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining.
Thank you, Professor Vivek, for moderating this session. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
We also thanks to ISS President or Secretary Arvind Ansari and Vivek to organize such a program where to remember our old scholars.
Your reflections, your participation makes the program more successful. Tthank you all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to all.